everyone. My name is Cynthia Newman, and I am the CEO and owner of Crank Marketing Group, LLC. I serve as the Vice President of Communications for the Suncoast chapter of AUSA and as VP of Communications for the Patton Foundation. And today we're proud to present the 6th installation of our 2021 Pivot to Excellence Executive Symposia and Summit Series. Today's webinar is the Pana-Caribbean Military Heritage Summit. And as our moderators today, I am pleased to introduce Eric Lien, current president of the Suncoast chapter of AUSA in Tampa, and past AUSA president of the European region, Mr. Walter Luchsinger, current president of the Isthmian chapter of AUSA in Panama, and Chief Foreign Officer, U.S. Army retired, Cristino Lozada-Cruz, current president of the AUSA chapter in Puerto Rico. And at this time, I would like to hand over the virtual microphone to Mr. Eric Lien.
Thank you, Cindy. It's a pleasure to be here today. We had the first idea for hosting the Pana-Caribbean Military Heritage Summit back in, I believe it was December of last year. And we thought, you know, there's National Caribbean American Heritage Month in June. That's something that we need to support. And it's an opportunity for our chapters to cooperate together. And so I'm the chapter president of the Suncoast chapter of AUSA, and we're the oldest chapter in Florida. We were formed in 1971. We have about 8,500 members. We serve the west central counties of Florida. I think 15 counties of west central Florida, roughly from Dixie County down to Fort Myers and Lakeland and Avon Park in this area. We're very proud to serve AUSA, and a few years ago we thought about what can we do to cooperate with the Puerto Rico chapter and the Isthmian chapter in Panama, and this is a perfect fit. It's great. The military service people with Caribbean heritage have a long tradition of over 100 years serving in the U.S. military. And whether it's guard or reserve or active duty, and this is a perfect chance for us to put things together and celebrate, and so it's a perfect opportunity for us to work together with the chapters in Panama and Puerto Rico as well. So part of our celebration, let's see who belongs to the who's the audience. Well, over my year serving with AUSA, whether it was in Europe or in Florida, I noticed that there were a lot of people serving in the military who were either Panamanian, or they were Puerto Rican, or Jamaican, or from the Virgin Islands, or from Cuba, people who immigrated from Cuba, Dominican Republic, and a lot of other regions within the Caribbean. I myself have some Caribbean heritage. I don't know if you can see that, but that's a picture of my great grandparents. And this is my grandfather in about 1905. That was taken in Montego Bay, Jamaica. And they moved, say D, all right, Jamaica, right? Aki fruit. Yeah. And our family's been in Tampa since 1924. So we're part, I have some Caribbean blood flowing through my veins. Now what I'd like to do, before we go on, I want to thank two very important people here. They're on your screen. There's Devin Ray and Cynthia Newman, because without this, without them serving a massive amount of work, this wouldn't be happening. So thank you to them for putting this together. And now I'd like to introduce you to Walter Luchsinger and Chief Lozada-Cruz. And Walter is the chapter president in Panama. And Walter, I'm going to hand over the mic to you. Here you go.
Okay, got it. Morning, everybody. Thanks, Eric, for putting this together. This is the first of this type of event. I hope this is not the last one. And next time we can see each other in person. You know, we have gotten used to this Zoom so much. Technology changed so much. Yeah, I'm the president. I've been the president for longer than I would have wanted, but it's a long story. And I won't even say for how long. But you'll get a hint lately. I'm Swiss, half Panamanian. I've never served in the army, but I did work for the Panama Canal for 30 years, 15 years with the U.S. government corporation, and then that's where I joined AUSA, and then after that, 15 years as a Panamanian, independent, like almost like a New York Port Authority. So AUSA has existed in Panama for many years. As you recall, in the 80s, we had a lot of military bases in Panama. During the Vietnam years, we had almost more troops than Fort Bragg, I think. There were almost like 90,000 troops in Panama at one time. And we had all the services. We had the Army, we had the Air Force with Howard Air Force Base, the largest Air Force base south of Rio Grande. And we also had the Navy, Rodman. So AUSA existed, but when I joined in '86, most of the members, there was a small contingent of civilians. They were mostly like troops. And most of the Panamanians were people that had gone to military academies. People that had gone to West Point, Citadel, Valley Forge, etc. And we also had the Southern Command and the U.S. Army South. And then in those days, you know, the U.S. and the Panamanian Defense Forces, they were in bed together, kind of a difficult relationship. They were kind of sleeping with the enemy. But the crisis hadn't started. So most of the members were mostly interested at that time in doing business with the Army bases like it is in most of the US. When the crisis started and the indictments came and all this crisis started, the US started distancing them from the Panamanian Defense Forces. And US replaced the Southern Command chief and the chief of the US Army South because they were too soft on the PDF. So they put General Warner, he was nicknamed Mad Max, and they put Cisneros, which is he was a Mexican-American Army general, two-star general, and they were hardliners. So the chapter twisted immediately. We started becoming like informer, trusted friends. We were in danger because all the media was closed. All the business organizations also were closed. So AUSA was the last organized business groups where people could meet. That's a long story I could talk for hours about. But the chapter, more and more Panamanians joined AUSA because it was the only place that we could talk freely. So we met inside the base, and you see hordes of Panamanians meeting there and trying to see what was going on and how could we advise the Americans. So we joined frank discussions, and we actually talk sensitive matters. And those are times that we will never forget because he went all the way to the invasion. And we had more information than the average Panamanian. And they had asked us what to do because the only free press was Tropic Times. The rest were banned totally together. So they would, splash in the front page, the real truth. But anyway, to make it short, after the invasion, we went into another phase, the chapter. We tried to build the image that had gone so bad for many years. And so we started traveling to Washington and making a Panama Week, we call it. And then we started teaming up with we did it during the annual meeting. So we went on that way, and then the US appointed, I would say, diplomat Southcom headquarters chiefs like General George and then Barry McCaffrey. So it's amazing that what we lived through. I mean, we were so close to the Southcom chiefs that I don't think any chapter has that closeness. We both from the social standpoint, but we had dinner with our wives, selected groups every month, and also briefings every month. And our goal was to try to get the bases renegotiated. It didn't work out because politics got on the way, and it's a long story. So we didn't get that going. And then in 2000, the chapter was closed because the last US serviceman left the Isthmus. So after year 2000, I had this idea. So you can tell how long I've been on board. In 2000, I flew to the States in Huntsville, Alabama, where I had relatives, and I presented myself like, hey, I want to open the chapter again, and I pledged Panama to be the host for 2003, and I succeeded. I had to, kind of outplay, I think, Fort Bragg and Tampa, for that matter. And then they chose Panama. Anyway, we started again. And with the limitations that we don't have an army, as you know, maybe it's interesting to know that by constitution, after the invasion, we banned the army, just like they have in Costa Rica. There's no army in Panama. We, of course, have a mutual treaty with the United States. They will defend us in case of some conflict. So all we have is a police force and small contingency now at the border with Colombia, which is the only quasi-army thing. And in Panama, there's a little bit of concern about having any military in Panama or people dressed in uniform. So we maintain this chapter mostly as because of heritage, because of legacy, because of the group of people that served during that time. It's almost the same as we were before. It's almost like 80, mostly civilians, some Americans and some Canadians and some Panamanians, but we're mostly civilians. The highest ranking officer in Panama is a colonel, Colonel Steve Winkleman, which is the head of the Office of Defense Coordination. But he also has a hard time because he deals with police commissioners. We don't. So that's our story. We hosted third region meetings in 95, 2003, and we did it 2 years ago. Eric was here in Panama, and we hope to keep doing it again. We are a small chapter, but very much engaged in tradition. So I'm very happy to cooperate with Puerto Rico, which, hey, you got our U.S. Army South transferred to Puerto Rico, and the head and the Southern Command went to Florida. We lost all those two things, but tradition exists, the memories exist, and we want to keep doing it for many years to come. So thanks, Eric, to inviting me to this meeting. And we're gonna have one of our members later speak about what he does now as a retired. He's like Puerto Rican. He's not really Panamanian, but he's a Puerto Rican in Spanish, but he lives in Panama, married to a Panamanian. So thanks again. Sorry for the long story. I could talk for 3 hours in another meeting about more details as to why we exist, because many people wonder, why is there a chapter in Panama? Well, I already told you. And I think we'll be here for many years to come. Thanks, Eric, and I'll turn it over to, I guess, Cristino, right?
Well, thank you, Walter. You kind of took some of my time also, but
I'm sorry.
I guess that's okay. I will make up the time. Some of those generals that you mentioned, I had the honor and distinction to work with them. Welcome, everyone. The Puerto Rico chapter was chartered on 30 October 1957. That is based on the AUSA National Archive records. Puerto Rico is a military-oriented island with its current political status as a Commonwealth. The Puerto Rican soldiers have participated in all military conflicts since World War I. We have Fort Buchanan as an Army Reserve installation left, which supports all military personnel, Army civilians, veterans, retirees, and their families that support America's Army. We have a U.S. Army garrison, a health clinic, a PX commissary, among other things. Most veterans receive their medical care at the San Juan VA Caribbean healthcare system and are supported by the San Juan VA regional office. There is a handful number of active duty personnel for all branches of services here: Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard, primarily in the recruiting commands. The mainstream of the soldiers for AUSA come from the U.S. Army Reserves and the National Guards. We have currently over 130,000 veterans, for which over 15,000 are retirees on the island. Puerto Rico is considered a small chapter with 90 plus individual members and over 340 National Association members. That is a Category 5, and that also includes the Virgin Islands. I have been honored to have been presiding this chapter since 2012. Okay, just to let you know that on the meeting that we had on Thursday and Friday, Puerto Rico chapter received recognition for being selected as the best chapter award for a small chapter for the third region. Okay, now I'm going to give you a little history of what the National Caribbean American Heritage Month is. In June 2005, the House of Representatives unanimously adopted House Congressional Resolution number 71, sponsored by Congresswoman Barbara Lee, recognizing the significance of Caribbean people and their descendants in the history and culture of the United States. On February 14, 2006, the resolution similarly passed in the Senate, culminating a 2-year bipartisan and bicameral effort. The proclamation was issued by President George W. Bush on June 6, 2006. Since the declaration, the White House has issued an annual proclamation recognizing June as Caribbean American Heritage Month. The campaign to designate June as a National Caribbean American Heritage Month was spearheaded by Dr. Clary Nelson, founder and president of the Institute of Caribbean Studies. Throughout the commemoration of this month, we hope to ensure that America is reminded that its greatness lies on its diversity, with Caribbean immigrants from founding father Alexander Hamilton to journalist Malcolm Gladwell, who have shaped the American dream. The vision of the National Caribbean American Heritage Month program is to promote the recognition of the contribution of Caribbean immigrants to the United States of America, from founding father Alexander Hamilton to Secretary of State General Colin Powell and Honorable Shirley Chisholm, the first Black woman to run as a candidate for the President of the United States of America. This year marks the 14th celebration of June as National Caribbean American Heritage Month. Actress and singer Sherry Lee Ralph of Jamaican heritage and basketball great Rick Fox, a Bahamian heritage, were named official spokespersons for the National Caribbean American Heritage Month in 2006. With that, we continue on with the program. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you, Chief. It's a pleasure to carry on. Florida has a long tradition as part of the Caribbean community as well. And in fact, the National Guard, the Florida National Guard, traces its heritage all the way back to I believe it was 1565 or so, when the Spanish set up the militia in St. Augustine. And in fact, you might know that the Florida National Guard headquarters is in St. Augustine as well. So our next speaker today is part of that. She is Major General Rita Broadway, Major General retired Rita Broadway, who's the state chair of the Florida Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve. And she's going to tell us about how, what the Guard and Reserve does. We have ESGR. I personally am a volunteer with ESGR as well. I'm proud to say that. And I'm going to hand over the microphone to Major General retired Broadway.
Thank you so much, Eric and team. I have to tell you, I love to take the opportunity to speak to groups about employer support to the Garden Reserve, ESGR. But in listening to some of you as we were getting prepared for this presentation, this is a fun group. I think I need to start dialing in for your meetings whenever you have them, because you all have some great fun. And I truly appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do this. I feel like one of the family already. We are celebrating our 49th birthday in ESGR, and like perhaps a fine wine, or some of us who might be on this Zoom meeting today, we get better with age. So we have a lot of stuff planned for our 50th birthday of next year. So we've been around for a while. But as Eric mentioned, the purpose of my presentation today is just to kind of give you an idea of what employer support to the Garden Reserve is. Some of you may have been affiliated with it before in your civilian capacity or your military capacity. And then also I'm going to tell you a little bit about the great work that some of our ESGR committees are doing in Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. In my background, I assumed the duties as state committee chair on 1 October, but I've been with ESGR for over 30 years, both in my military capacity and my civilian capacity. On the military side as a commander, I saw and sent my soldiers overseas with the Afghan war and the Iraqi war. So I helped them kind of navigate with their employers, how long they were going to be gone and any challenges that they might have. And in particular, some of the challenges that the families might have as well. So I was on that side of the fence, but then as a federal civil service employee, I also employed a number of reserve component service members and National Guard members who then had to leave their civilian employment and be gone for months, years. And so I also experienced the challenges that our employers have as well when their service members, employees actually have to leave their employment. So it kind of gives me a unique perspective, having worked both sides of the fence, as you might say. What we do in ESGR is mainly educate and advise both our service members and our employers as to how to navigate those delicate situations when they're going to be gone. So our main role is to educate and advise and recognize both great service members and volunteers and employers who do a great job in supporting them as well. We are a Department of Defense agency established in 1972, and we are primarily manned by volunteers. We have a small support staff up at Department of Defense, and then we do have one full-time contractor that supports us in St. Augustine. But like AUSA, most of our work is done by volunteers. We're a strong advocate for the service members, their families, and their employers, and all the stakeholders that benefit because our employers have reserve component service members on their staff. There's a great benefit, as you know, that they bring to the table, drug-free, great leadership skills. They're committed, they're dedicated. And so our role in ESGR is to help promote that with employers as well. We have a network of over 3,300 volunteers throughout the 54 committees. That includes the 50 United States, the District of Columbia, as well as a committee in Guam, the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Island, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Our volunteers, like myself, come from all walks of life. We have small business owners, we have industry, we have government, we have education, we have the military service backgrounds, and we bring with us a vast wealth of knowledge in how we can serve our employers, our service members, their families, and more importantly, the communities, because we're all part of communities and we all benefit from what we do. We're very people-oriented, a people-centric organization. We like to get out and network, visit with individuals personally, do recognitions, and primarily also educate both the employers and our reserve component service members about the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act, USERRA. I'm sure many of you have heard from that, with the intent to build a positive and mutually beneficial relationship so that any challenges that might arise from a service member having to go to training or to schooling or to deploy can be headed off before any of those challenges exist. Here in Florida, we have a great relationship. We make it a point to establish really good working relationships with organizations, and I'll tell you about some of those here in a minute, that will help us engage with employers. There are so many employers in Florida And we have so many service members in Florida as well, that it's difficult for us with our volunteer workforce to go out and engage each one of those employers. So what we do in Florida is we establish relationships with those organizations that can help us reach those employers, perhaps en masse. One of the great relationships we have here in Florida is with the Society of Human Resource Management, SHRM. They have chapters throughout the entire state. They are the human resource advisors and entities in our employers, especially our large employers and corporations. And if we can educate them and get them to team up with us, then they're able to head off perhaps any challenges when it comes to reserve component service members that are current employees. But then it also gives us a leg up as those corporations are looking to hire people, and they're looking to connect with perhaps reserve component service members and veterans and get that high quality employee. So it's kind of a win-win for both of us. So our relationship with SHRM has been very beneficial. We also have some relationships with some of the major trade organizations in Florida, one of them being the Bay Area Manufacturing Association, BAMA, headquartered there in Tampa. They service and have as part of their professional organization a number of manufacturing employers, large corporations and small corporations that will help our outreach activities. We also partner or have a collaborating relationship with the Building Industry Consulting Service International Organization, BICSI, and we attend their trade organization meetings and promote ESGR, but then also we serve as a sounding board and listen to what some of their concerns are. We not only want to be a one-way street and give out information and advise, we also want to be receptive and hear what employers are saying about what some of their challenges are, what kind of employees they're looking for, especially as you know, in this environment, when frankly, if you look at the major databases for jobs throughout the United States, there are in fact more jobs available now than there are people on unemployment. So as we navigate through how this workforce may look a little bit different than it did before the pandemic, we want to be a feedback loop and really generate that type of discussion. We also work with the Florida Makes organization and also some chambers of commerce throughout the country. One of our other missions in ESGR is to educate our service members and their families as well, to make sure that they understand what their roles and responsibilities are as a reserve component service member who may have to leave their civilian job and go to training, schooling, or in fact deploy. We want to make sure they understand their legal rights under the law, but also the rights of their employers. Because if everybody's on the same sheet of music and everybody understands the clear lines of communication and what their responsibilities are, then there won't be any challenges or disagreements or perhaps USERRA inquiries when it comes to that service member going to school, going to their annual training, or going to the deployment. We also have a robust awards program in ESGR. I've always felt, and ESGR headquarters has always felt that it's really good to recognize, as AUSA does, recognize those individuals and those organizations that are really doing a good job. So we have awards that range from a Patriot Award, which is an award that a service member employee can nominate their supervisor, a senior coworker, someone in the organization who has really helped them maintain both a civilian career and a military career. And sometimes we don't say thank you enough. We don't recognize those good works and those good efforts. And the Patriot Award at the lowest possible level is the way for ESGR and our service members to do that. So we really encourage those service members that have a great boss that lets them off for battle assembly, or lets them off when they need to perhaps work an extra weekend, or they're going to be gone for an annual training that may be not 2 weeks, but maybe 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Because as you all know, the way we're employing our reserve component service members, no matter the service, Air Force, Navy, Marine, Coasties, the Army, eventually perhaps the Space Force, and in particular our National Guard, it's no longer 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks out of the year. That whole dynamic has just shifted considerably. So we promote the Patriot Award at the lowest level, and it goes all the way up to the Department of Defense Freedom Award, which is the national level award that recognizes the top 15 employers in the United States who really go above and beyond. Their human resource programs are focused on helping reserve component service members and veterans maintain both a civilian career and their military career. They support them when they're deployed with care packages. They offer free daycare. They continue their health benefits. Some very major corporations throughout the country who do that for us. And that is what the Freedom Award is. But then we also don't want to forget our volunteers and those great men and women who serve and do what I'm doing right now. Volunteers like you and AUSA who really have a passion for what we do. Because that paycheck at the end of the week, all those zeros really doesn't buy a whole lot anymore. So we do this because we love it. And it's really important we recognize those volunteers that we have to do that as well. In order for us to be successful in ESGR, particularly in the Florida committee, we really have to figure out a way to increase our communication venues and avenues. We want to communicate more with our service members. So we go to the units and the military units and the organizations that support those service members. We want to communicate more with our employers. So we do briefings with the boss and go out to the employers. We do boss lifts where we get a number of employers together and by partnering with our military units, which we have a great number here in Florida, do a boss lift, put them on a C-130, take them somewhere, let them Camp Blanding, one of our large National Guard bases here in Florida, and do work with some of the individuals going through that training. It really gives those employers an appreciation of what that service member does when they're not working at their corporation or at their shop floor, and how, most people who are employed who may not be service members or are not service members, they work maybe perhaps Monday through Friday. They maybe do a 40, 50-hour work week, but our service members do a 40 or 50-hour work week. And then on the weekends, they're doing something else. And so when they come to back work on Monday, it's not like, they weren't on the golf course and they weren't able to, have that barbecue at the house. They were at Camp Blanding doing some really tough training. And so it's important for our employers to kind of recognize that. And I can say, having been to several boss lifts, the employers come away with a total different perspective of what their reserve component service members do when they put on the uniform. So those are some of the great events that we do. We also like to partner with AUSA. You all have a network, and I'll talk about that in a little bit later, but have a network that just allows us another venue and another platform to tell our message. So we love the fact that Eric and team have invited me to do this, and Eric partners with us on other AUSA events. We visit with the VFW. The Kiwanis are a great supporter. Chambers of Commerce. What a better way to reach out to a lot of businesses and communities than to engage with chambers of commerce who have their business interests at heart. And then we have the service members at heart. So it really is a great partnership. We not only want to explain what ESGR does, but we want to give them a taste of what our service members do in support of this nation. We're not mobilizing and deploying perhaps as many service members that we did in 2001 through 2009, when we were all embroiled in mobilizing tens of thousands of soldiers every day in support of Afghanistan and Iraq. But there are Reserve and National Guard service members who are away from their families today, supporting and defending our nation's goals. As many of you know, the Reserve Components has had a really robust presence as part of what's going on. And we in Florida recognize it every day, because in prep for the hurricane season, we see our Reserve and National Guard soldiers out there helping communities and everybody get ready for it. But they were also very, very active, and I suspect in some of your areas as well, very, very active when it came to the COVID-19 response. It was Reserve Component service members who were setting up the field hospitals, and at the height of the pandemic, were actually conducting mortuary affairs. The units were also providing COVID-19 testing. They're also at food distribution centers, and they're also administering the COVID-19 vaccine. And as the active component personnel pull away from these missions and go back to the active component role, those missions are now being fully supported by the Reserve and National Guard service members. So I anticipate that this will not decrease tremendously, although the footprint may be a little smaller. It won't decrease tremendously for a little bit more time. As I mentioned, AUSA can help us with our communication strategy. You guys have contacts throughout the state. You've got contacts throughout the region, and we're always looking for opportunities to partner and tell the ESGR story. You're connected to some civic groups, and it's really kind of a mutual beneficial relationship. We can talk about AUSA and the great work that you do promoting the Army and the service that your volunteers do as well. And then you can help us with our outreach activities. It's a great partnership. Like you, we are navigating as a result of the pandemic, some of this virtual platform stuff that we're having to do. We in ESGR are meeting those challenges and will probably continue to do a number of events and venues where we do use the virtual platforms. We find that we're able to reach more people. I mean, this is a classic example of what we're doing right now. You're able to reach across large distances and connect with people as if you're sitting in the same room. We have met some challenges though with our volunteer force. Our volunteer force in Florida, as in most committees throughout ESGR, is a little older population, perhaps not as skilled at working with a computer, don't feel as comfortable with Zoom, don't feel comfortable seeing themselves on a screen, try to be cognizant of all the noise in the house that's going on when you're trying to have a confidential or a more private meeting on Zoom. So we've had to do a little education. We have some volunteers who have embraced it, who have really done a great job and have allowed us to even work with some of the larger corporations and be part of their trade shows when they've conducted those trade shows virtually. But we also see some great advantage to keeping a virtual outreach ability. And that's it. When we would do Patriot Awards and we would have a service member present that award to their supervisor, perhaps on a shop floor, manufacturing shop floor, we were able to have an ESGR volunteer, we would have the service member, we would have the individual receiving the award, and we might have a few more other people who gathered around the event. Pretty limited audience that you were able to bring in. Now with the virtual platforms, we can invite the CEO of that company. We can invite the board of directors. We can invite the service member's commander. So now all of a sudden, the recognition that may have been only a half a dozen people can be much more expansive, which then sometimes greatly helps the service member because they're getting the recognition and reaching out and saying thank you, but also for the employee and the company. So now the simple Patriot Award that we give out has now mushroomed into something greater. Perhaps a discussion about how ESGR can team with that corporation now to marry and find good employees, or how they can advise and assist their human resource department and brief them on USERRA and some of the other entities of ESGR. So the virtual world has really helped us expand our audience and get the word out perhaps much better than if we were still doing things in a face-to-face arena. We also gain support from our employers by telling them about a statement of support. And this is where our employers actually physically sign a statement of support that they pledge that they will support their reserve component service members and that they will work with them when it comes to deployments, that they will take a review of their human resource policies and find out if there's a way they can continue benefits for those service members that are deployed. But it actually is a physical statement. The signature on one block is our national chair, Ron Bogle, and the signature on the other block is actually the Secretary of Defense, Mr. Austin. So it is a great showcase piece of paper, and paper matters and visuals matter, where the corporation can say, yes, we support our reserve component service members and what they do. And oh, by the way, we're going to show you that we do that because we're going to sign this piece of paper and then we're going to put it in our lobby, or we're going to put it in a common area where people can see that they are supporting, they're putting their money where their mouth is, I guess is the best way to put it. We're organized here in Florida in ESGR to service our military units as well. We have ESGR volunteers assigned to each military unit throughout the state. And we're trying to codify and solidify those relationships so that when there's an issue or a concern, that service member or the commander of that unit knows who to pick up and call, so that things don't fester and that we can keep increasing that communication. This has also helped a lot with some of our reserve units, Army reserve units in particular, that are spread out throughout the state or spread out, in fact, throughout the country. That commander can get everybody onto a visual platform. We can give an ESGR briefing. We can answer questions. And instead of having to do 5 separate little briefings throughout the state, we can do one briefing at one time. And so it just decreases the amount of time that we as you know, the service members have a limited amount of time in that particular training scenario. And so if we can minimize that and give them more training time back, but still accomplish our mission, that helps everybody. I do want to talk a little bit about and give you an idea of what our ESGR committees are doing in Guam, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. They're small committees, but they're very, very involved in promoting the ESGR vision, what our mission is, what our goals are. And some of you may know about them. And if you've got some comments or would like to share, that would be really great. The ESGR committee in the Virgin Islands is very active. They recently recognized Frederica Stead Healthcare with the 2020 Freedom Award nomination certificate. So that installation, that hospital was nominated for a Freedom Award. And then they also received the Above and Beyond Award from them. They are recognizing outstanding service members from the U.S. Virgin Islands, and they publicized the recent promotion of the U.S. Virgin Islands National Guard Adjutant General. So they're very involved in what's going on down there with their service members. The ESGR committee in Puerto Rico has been conducting USERRA briefs to their service members. They celebrated Memorial Day with visits to the veteran cemeteries, and they've been attending job fairs and presenting statements of support to employers. I would suspect too that there were probably some ESGR representatives there this last week when the Command Sergeant Major for the Army Reserve, Command Sergeant Major Lombardo, visited the first MSC. And so I suspect that there was some discussion about what ESGR in Puerto Rico is doing to facilitate the Army Reserve soldiers and their families' ability to work civilian jobs and military jobs as well. In Guam, the ESGR committee is busy working veterans causes and recognizing their Freedom Award nominees as well. So some very active chapters. ESGR throughout the country has throughout the committees have very small chapters with maybe not a whole lot of members, maybe 20 members at the most, to California, which has 272 volunteers. So great work being done by great people who really have a passion for what we do. And we do this because we love our service members. We love their families. We love making a contribution that's going to make the world better, because in the end, that furthers what we do to help our national defense. And when you can get service members to stay in the Florida National Guard and some of the other, services, then they're not having to work so hard on recruiting. We spend a tremendous amount of money to train our service members, and we want the service members to stay. So ESGR is part of that three-legged stool, four-legged stool with the family and the communities and the commanders that help our service members stay. We are looking for volunteers. ESGR is a great opportunity to not only get out and tell the ESGR story, but to help tell the story of our service members and our great employers. So we're always looking for volunteers in ESGR. We need AUSA's partnership. As I mentioned before, it's a great opportunity for us to tell both our stories. And we're all in it for the same reason. We love this country. We love our partners. The U.S. Virgin Islands and Guam and Puerto Rico, we love, and Panama, we love that entity. AUSA reaches that much further than ESGR does. And we're so appreciative of that because of the great relationship it fosters with the people on this call. It's all about people. It's all about, doing what we do because we have a passion in our heart to make life better. And we want to defend this nation. We want our nation to be successful. And we know that we can only do that when we have great patriots that are helping us do that. So thank you so much for the time. I really love speaking to you all. A fun group, as I mentioned before. And thank you for what you do. I'm sure your paycheck is about as big as mine is. So thank you for giving what you do because you love what you do. So with that, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take those. Otherwise, I'll turn it back over to Eric.
Ma'am?
Yes.
This is First Sergeant Daila Espeut-Jones, United States Army retired, and thank you so much for being with us today. It's not really a question, but it's probably a comment for a future partnership. I received an invitation to visit a local reserve unit in August. And I would like to speak to you offline because I think there is a great possibility for you to, if available, to, you know, go on that visit with me to that unit. So I will get in contact with you after I return from Africa, because I'm leaving for Africa tomorrow, so we can collaborate.
You bet. You bet. Eric's got my email, and certainly get a hold of me. I will. I love to visit and speak to soldiers. So if there's anything I can do to help you, Dee, that would be great.
Yes, ma'am. I thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ma'am, we will be able to send out some information when we send out the recording of the video of this webinar. We'll send out some information for ESGR so that participants can have a bit of information. So I spoke with Peter earlier, well, actually last week, and he's going to give us the information that we can distribute. So everybody's got ESGR information. And anything else you want to add, that's perfect.
Great. Thank you, Eric.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand over the microphone to Chief Lozada-Cruz. I'm going to hand that over, and I'll let you introduce our next speaker.
Well, thank you, Eric. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
General Broadway, just to let you know that the AUSA Puerto Rico chapter signed the statement of support with the ESGR here in Puerto Rico with Colonel Agustin Rivera. So we're on board.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. And thank you for your message. Okay. It is now my honor to introduce Mr. Agustin Montanez-Allman. He was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico, to Agustin Montanez Sr. from Naguabo, Puerto Rico, and Caroline Allman from Weston, West Virginia. He graduated from high school in 1982, I shouldn't say the year, but yeah, and won a 4-year Army ROTC scholarship. In 1986, well, Mr. Agustin, everybody's going to know your age here in a minute. In 1986, he earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science from the Ohio University. That same year, he was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Army Reserve. In 1990, while attending law school, he was ordered to active duty for Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm in the Persian Gulf. He commanded the 311th Mortuary Affairs Company, located at Ramey Base in Aguadilla, Puerto Rico. He received a Bronze Star Medal in 1991 for his leadership and flawless performance as a commander running operations in 3 countries during the Persian Gulf War. Upon his return from active duty, he earned a Juris Doctor degree from the Inter-American University of Puerto Rico School of Law. During law school, he met his wife, Mercedes Peguero Moronta, and has 3 children, Agustin, Nicole Marie, and John Peter. For the last 26 years, he held different positions in the government of Puerto Rico, including Assistant District Prosecutor with the Puerto Rico's Department of Justice, Assistant Secretary for Administration and Management of the Department of Correction and Rehabilitation, Sub-Administrator of the Administration of the Revitalization of Communities of Housing Department, and Sub-Administrator of the Commerce Development Administration. Montanez-Allman's multicultural background, empowerment-oriented leadership, and knowledge of military and local government procurement policies earned him public recognition as a result-oriented administrator, ready to take on daunting situations positively. The governor of Puerto Rico, Honorable Luis Fortunio Burset, appointed him as the acting Puerto Rico Veterans Advocate. with the urgent task of regaining the federal government's certification of the Puerto Rico Veterans Home in Juana Diaz, and with the critical goal of improving services for all veterans residing in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. He was confirmed by the Puerto Rico Senate in 2010. Since then, he has been directing the Veterans Advocate Office. It is for me an honor to introduce to you Mr. Agustin Montanez-Allman. Sir, to you.
Thank you, Cristino. And I thought you had the shorter version of the bio, but it's okay. I'm really glad, and it's a pleasure to be here today in this activity, the first Pana-Caribbean Military Heritage Summit. And I would like to begin giving greetings and a big salute to Mr. Walter Luchsinger, President of the Ismanian chapter, and also Eric Lien, President of the Suncoast chapter. And obviously, my good friend, Chief Warrant Officer Cristino Lozada, President of the Puerto Rico chapter of AUSA. Like I mentioned, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here this morning and this activity. They asked me today to share a little bit of my personal experience while I was in the Army, and also talk about my agency, the territorial agency that I lead at this moment. To talk a little bit of my experience, I have to say that as a Hispanic and a member, Hispanic from the Caribbean, my experience in the Army, I have to say, at least my experience was a very good experience. Like it was mentioned by Cristino, I was 16 years in the Army Reserve, including 7 months that we were in the sands of the Middle East, doing the mortuary affairs mission. We were giving support to the entire 7th Corps from Germany, and I was running 17 collection points, mortuary collection points, during in Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and also Iraq. Obviously, my experience in the Army Reserve, like I mentioned, was 16 years, 10 in the Select Service, and the other 6 in the Individual Ready Reserve. Was mostly in the mortuary affairs area, logistician. I was a logistician, quartermaster officer. But also I was some years as the training officer of the Army Reserve School here in Puerto Rico. I have to mention that the experience was very positive. For me, I learned some skills and knowledge that later applied to my civilian life, principally in the 26 years that I have been in the government. And I think, it's something that I try to always talk to the younger generation right now that we have here in Puerto Rico, of joining the military if it's an active duty in the reserve or in the National Guard. One of my oldest son, he joined 7 years ago the National Guard. He's a military photographer, and he came back right now from activation in Texas. And that's, we have tried to continue that tradition. I come from a big military mind family. I had 4 uncles from my father's side that they served during World War II. One was injured during in France, and also I had uncles in Korea and also in Vietnam, and that's something that we have kept this tradition of serving the military and our country since then. And like I say, have been a very positive experience, and I would like to bring a little story about my experience and how it developed and my professional way of working. Always remember my first military exercise was a year after I graduated in 1987. We had it was a little mini war game type exercise. And obviously my unit, at that time, I joined the reserve in a unit in New Orleans. It was a mortuary affairs unit in New Orleans. We were in Camp Blading, Florida, doing that exercise with other units from the reserve and active duty. And I always remember we at that time, the doctrine for mortuary affairs was that you establish cemeteries. And that's what the Army did during World War II, Korea. But we changed that. And now it's another doctrine. But at that moment, that was the doctrine, doing cemeteries. Well, we were doing the exercise, and I had this cemetery running, and we start getting the remains that were, mannequins. We saw that there were the remains. The thing is, I got to a point that we were receiving so many casualties that I ran out of forms. And I told the sergeant, well, go to the headquarters and get some photocopies of the forms while you come back. And what we were doing, we were putting the mannequins, outside in a tent outside. In the way they were coming, that was the way we were putting them. Next thing I know, the coroner of our battalion came, and he saw what we were doing, and he asked me, Lieutenant, what you're doing? And I explained, well, we ran out of documents, and we are putting here the remains. That way, as soon as the documents come, we will start processing them. And I never saw somebody got so mad in a short period like that. He said, you're telling me that you stop a military operation because you don't have the documents? He said, Lieutenant, I want you to process those remains. I don't care if you do it in toilet paper, but I want you to start processing those remains. You don't stop military operations. Well, obviously, I was so scared. I called the sergeants, go and get all the paper you can get, and we start processing the remains before the documents came. But that taught me that you never stop an operation. And that helped me during the, we had two big hurricanes hit Puerto Rico 4 years ago. We didn't stop operations. A day and a half after the hurricanes, my office was operating immediately. We were the only office, even our building had a big damage. We were able to establish operations in the lobby, and we were the only tenant working one day and a half after the hurricane. And obviously now with the COVID pandemic, we didn't stop operations, and we continue working. Immediately, the government closed, and we had to work virtually. We were already ready, and we have been working all this time of the pandemic since then. And that's my experience, in a short way of the positive experience that I had in the military. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the Veterans Advocate Office in the government of Puerto Rico. Every state and territory have a state veterans agency. Many people sometimes confuse us with VA, but obviously we don't have the resources nor the mission that VA have. We're a small territory agency. We have we have 16 employees, counting with myself, but we provide a very important mission for the veterans, the military personnel in Puerto Rico, and also their families. And I would like to talk a little bit about the office. The office was established in 1987. We have been reorganized in 3 occasions. That means that we have on 3 occasions a new law that established how the agency works. What our mission is? Well, we have several things that we are supposed to be doing for the veterans, and what we do every day. First, if a veteran or his family have any type of a situation, it can be related to transportation, housing, medical, whatever, including label situations, we are authorized to help the veteran to resolve. We work as a facilitator. And I have to mention to General Broadway, we have had cases where veterans that are still in the Reserve and National Guard have come to the office with a labor situation. And we immediately, when we recognize there's an AUSA issue, we immediately work with ESGR, with General Colonel Agustin Rivera and his volunteers, and we refer the case and we give the support necessary to ESGR and to that veteran. If it's something that is more into the local law, then we, the lawyers I have at the office, we work the case. But we do that every day. When the veterans comes with a situation, we analyze what's the situation, then we look for what agency or institution or organization we can refer the case, and then we give follow-up that entity continues giving the support to the veterans. And that's one of the things that we do every day. Also, one of our functions is to work processing all the claims, VA claims that the veterans have in Puerto Rico. We are authorized by VA to work those claims. Every year we bring millions of dollars into the economy through the different claims that we work for the veterans, though I'm mostly talking of compensation and pension claims, but also we work the education benefits and other benefits that the federal government provides for veterans and their families, and we do that every day. Also, we have a veterans home that is assigned to my office. We have right now 128 residents at that veterans home. 120 are veterans, and we have 8 spouses or widows. I have to say with a lot of pride that we have not had one case of COVID since the pandemic started, and that's something that we are very proud of it, that we have been working very hard to keep that facility COVID-free and operating. Like I mentioned, during the hurricane, we were able to keep the operations. We didn't have to close the facility, and we kept operating, and that's something that I'm very proud of the work of the people at the veterans home. Also, we have under my agency, we run and I have to mention I forgot to mention that the veterans home, we have people, we're the only one in the Caribbean. We have even residents that were residents from Virgin Island. They're now residing at our facility that is located in the southern part of the island. Also, we have the only Caribbean veterans state or territorial cemetery. We have 2 or very soon we're going to have 2 national cemeteries run by VA, but also we have a veterans state cemetery that is run by my office. We have been doing it since 2014, and we have been operating, and like I said, we have not closed operations for any of the disasters we have had recently. Also, we provide a very interesting service, is that in the case the family of deceased veterans is interested in having a Puerto Rican flag, we are authorized by law to provide the Puerto Rican flag. That way they can have it for the final funeral arrangements or for the wake, and we provide that service also. And also, our main function is that we have to supervise and regulate that all the private and public entities or organizations in Puerto Rico follow certain laws that we have here in Puerto Rico that protects veterans and also military personnel. And I would like to talk about that a little bit now. For example, we have the law 79 from 2007, which is the Puerto Rico Veterans Bill of Rights. It's a law that established several benefits and services for the veterans and their families here in the island. Some of the benefits are in different areas. I have to mention that the first Puerto Rico Bill of Rights was passed in 1947, was a mostly labor type benefit law. Later in 1980, they passed Law 13. That was the second Bill of Rights. And that one was a little more, had more benefits in other areas. And then in 2007, they passed, the Puerto Rico legislature passed the law that is right now being implemented. That law covers several areas I mentioned: housing benefits, covers education benefits. One of the benefits that is a very good one is that veterans, once they finish or they don't have no more their BA benefits, then all the public universities are obligated to give free tuition to that veteran. That way they can they can finish their education, their university education. That's something that, have helped a lot of veterans in here in the island to be able to finish their profession through their education. Also covers different other things like, license plates, exemptions in income tax, property tax, and other areas. And it don't only cover veterans, but also covers their family, their wives, their minor sons, and also the widows. And that's something that we have to be constantly doing at the office to secure that law is implemented. And I have to mention, Broadway, one of the parts that the law have is in the labor area. And we have extended some of the benefits from USERRA have been extended in this law. For example, you know that if military personnel, Guard of Reserve are activated, they have 5 years. They can be, their position can be protected at their civilian position. Under the Puerto Rican law, there's no time limit. In other words, if the person was activated 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, the employee must save his position or one equivalent to the position that person had. And that's what I was saying. That, yeah,
that's great.
Something that we have passing here in Puerto Rico. We work with the employers to try not to affect their operation, but at the same time to be sure they protect and protect the veterans. And that's one of the examples I brought, that although if it's a USERRA, if they come to our office, it's an USERRA issue, we send it to ESGR. If it's something that is more into the Puerto Rico law, then we keep the case and we work the case. Also, we have the law 2000, the law 218 from 2003 is the law that protects military personnel in their job area, and that law established that my agency have to regulate. And I have to say, this is different from other state veterans agencies in the United States and the territories. We have you can say, oversight or regular function, which other agencies in the states don't have. I can impose fines. I can do an investigation. We can do some administrative hearings if we understand that the agency violated, or the state agency, the municipality, or the private company violated one of those protections, veterans or military protection laws. We can have the administrative hearings, and we can impose fines in the process. And we, thank God, we don't have to apply that much. In the 10 years I have been at the position, we only had 2 or 3 cases in that area. Mostly are in state government agencies. Although I have to mention, at this moment, we have a case against a pharmaceutical that violated some of the clauses of the Puerto Rico law, and we're dealing with that right now. And we are there to be, at all time helping the veterans. We serve as the liaison between the BSOs and the MSOs, the veteran service organizations and the military service organizations like AUSA. We serve as a liaison between the organizations and the government. Constantly, the different veterans and military organizations call me, and we coordinate when they have some need in an agency or a municipality. We work in that way. I have given you a very brief way what my office does, what we do every day to protect, as we call it in the office, our heroes, the ones that, you know, that when the nation called them, they went and served. And something interesting is that we also serve prior military personnel from the National Guard or Reserve, though they don't have maybe veteran status or not retired from the armed forces, but because they serve in the military, we have authority to see their cases, and we also give the support to those people. Some years ago, I always remember we had this this ex-National Guardsman. He had only been like 3 or 4 years in the National Guard, and he finished his contract and came out. But in his job, they were discriminating against him. They were treating him as if he was a veteran or military personnel. And because my law permits, we were able to enter to the case and we protect the situation to that ex-military man at the time. Así que, you know, it's something that my office, we do sometimes. It's a little different scope than what you see in the agencies in the state. But we were very proud of what we do. And again, I would like to give thanks for the invitation to be at this activity. I have to say, once I was a member of AUSA, and I told Cristino last weekend that I'm going to join again in this month, and that way, you know, continue giving the support. Thank you, and if you have any questions, I will be very gladly to answer them.
I don't have a question, sir, but I do have a comment. I believe in partnership, and I believe in spreading the wealth. I have 2 great friends, my Puerto Rican brothers, who live, and they are very active in Puerto Rico. And again, I'll pass on their information so you guys can connect. One is Command Sergeant Major, retired, Jose Aponte. He's doing great things in Puerto Rico with Operation Give Back.
Yes,
and
I know Aponte.
Do you know him?
Yeah, I know him. Yeah,
he's
and
doing
Cristino
great.
also, yeah.
Yes, he's doing great things there. And also Sergeant Major retired Walter Morales. He used to be the Sergeant Major in charge of suicide prevention for the Army. And he was my former Sergeant Major at the G1 when I was in Hanau, Germany. And we've developed great relationships, you know, through the years. And I always love to, you know, do the connecting, you know, bridging that gap, because these are people who were, you know, trendsetters in the military, and they still continue to serve. So I think it will be a great partnership for them to continue to serve with you. So I'll provide that information at a later time.
It will be a pleasure.
Yes, sir.
And thanks for your service.
And you as well.
Well, it looks like there's no questions. I will be a little bit more in the activity. By 11:30, I have to start moving because I have an activity at 1. But it's a pleasure. I will be here for several minutes. And thank you, and have a beautiful day.
Thank you, sir. It was very enlightening, and it's a pleasure to have you speaking with us. And we hope next year that when we do the next iteration that maybe we can invite you back. I'd like to introduce a famous person as our next speaker. She is the immediate past president of the Sunshine chapter of AUSA and serves on the Veterans Council of Orange County. It's we know her in the AUSA world as First Sergeant D. Jones. So I'm going to turn over the microphone to D. I think you need to unmute yourself, D. There you go. I'm going to hand over the microphone to you, and let's roll.
Thank you. I received the microphone very well. Again, good morning, everyone. And it is a pleasure being here. And one disclaimer that I do have while I'm speaking, sometimes you'll hear my Jamaican accent that will come out. I am proud. I'm not ashamed of it at all. So if I may say a word or two that may sound backwards or off, you know, that's only because I'm still deeply rooted in my Jamaican culture. So with the, I won't go into patois because then I'll totally lose you. But it is, again, like I said, it is a pleasure, you know, to be here. I'm enjoying, you know, all the information that is being put, you know, out. And it's so I felt so elated, you know, virtually meeting Major General Broadway. Nothing against my brothers, you know, my military brothers. However, I love my military sisters. So ma'am, I thank you for being a trendsetter and leading the path that I, you know, took, you know, during my time in the military. And also to let you know that one of the things that I did right before I left as the president for the AUSA Sunshine chapter was to do an ESGR, you know, sign in with General Ham while I was still president. And that was a great day.
That's great,
So
Dee. Thank you.
do. So my portion is briefly to talk about Jamaicans and their contribution to the U.S. Military. You know, I was born and raised in Jamaica, and at the age of 15, I left Jamaica reluctantly to go and live with my biological parents in Boston. And the reason why I say reluctantly was because I was raised by my grandparents. I was given to my grandparents at the tender age of 3 months and 3 weeks old. So I grew fond of them and did not want to leave. And to this day, to be honest with you, I wish I'd stayed in Jamaica to continue, you know, being with my grandparents because they were such great role models. However, my path led somewhere else and it led me to where I am today. And one of the things that I'll say is immigrants have served in and fought for the US military since the birth of the nation, you know, from the Revolutionary War to present. Thousands from the Caribbean are veterans, and I am proud to be one of those veterans. You know, as a little girl growing up in Jamaica, I remember seeing soldiers training with our Jamaican Defense Force. And I remember they came into my community of Belvedere, and our community was probably about 150 people strong. So everybody knew, you know, everyone. And that morning in question, I saw those soldiers. They had camouflage on, boots, and they had machine guns. And I was scared to death because I wasn't used to seeing that. Even though we have a defense force, they did not train in my area. They had specific areas throughout Jamaica that they would go to. So I was nervous. I was scared. Never did I imagine that one day I would be wearing those same boots, camo, jumping out of planes, and most importantly, leading troops. As I was preparing, you know, today to speak, I decided to take a look into the number of Caribbean/West Indians who currently serve in the U.S. military and have served. And what I found out that there are thousands, you know, according to the Department of Defense statistics for the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. I have not really met, but I'm sure they are Coast Guard, you know, folks who have served in the Coast Guards. The highest number was from Cuba, then Puerto Rico, followed by the Bahamas, and then other Caribbean nations like the Dominican Republic, Haiti, Belize, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, and most importantly, my beautiful island of Jamaica. For many years, I took an interest, a personal interest, to dig into Jamaicans, you know, serving or have served in foreign military. And what I mean by foreign military is we have served in the United States, Canada, and even in the British Army. My interest grew stronger after I deployed to OIF and OEF, where I saw and heard about, you know, the different casualties. Throughout the years, I met so many service members who have served or have served. And we have a thing where when we meet, it's as though we are, related. We're no strangers to each other. We get together, we fellowship, we cook, and we eat. And if you know anything about Jamaicans, we love to eat jerk chicken, for those who eat pork, jerk pork, and they drink famous rums. We just have a good time. So, nonetheless, a lot of us who have served and those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, I noticed that there hasn't been any or much recognition for those who have passed on. So in 2017, I took a personal interest and went to Jamaica to the biannual Jamaican Diaspora conference, where I personally met and spoke to the Jamaican Prime Minister, the Honorable Andrew Holiness. During the event, there was an opportunity and he was standing by himself, and I approached him. As I approached the Prime Minister, he put his hand out to shake my hand, and he said, "Ma'am, you walk so militant. Never met this man before." And I said, "Sir, let me introduce myself to you." I said, "I am First Sergeant Daila Espeut-Jones, born and raised in Jamaica. However, I served 22 years in the United States Army, and I'm here to talk to you about Jamaicans who have served and have paid the ultimate sacrifice." And he was astonished because he said that, one, he didn't think that, he knew, no, what he said was, I'm sorry, no one has ever approached him about our contribution in foreign military. And he thought that was a great approach. We talked for about 10 minutes. I explained to him exactly where I would like to take this approach. And he scheduled an appointment. We met for a second appointment. And since then, been working behind the scenes to not only do a recognition, but also to erect a monument in Jamaica to recognize, our contribution. COVID happened, so we were not able to move forward with the third meeting. However, that meeting will take place at a later date once we are, behind COVID. I look forward to that because I do believe that we have made stride, towards excellence. And I'm very partial to my my culture, and not to take away from anyone else's culture because I do celebrate everyone. However, we are a very, very small island, and to see how many have served in the US military, we don't do it because we want a green card. Many who I've met, they never even got a green card during the time that they were in the military. They wanted to serve because they felt, like myself, it was a way of giving back to the United States who adopted us. And I was one of those individuals who felt that way. We have famous veterans who are US born, children of West Indian immigrants, including, Jamaican American, the most famous 4-star General Colin Powell, and US, from the US Army, and former Secretary of State. You also have, she's not Army, however, she is Jamaican, and she is in the Marine Corps. You have Brigadier General Lorna Maylock. She was born in Jamaica. She migrated to Brooklyn, New York, and enlisted in the Marine Corps. She's still actively serving. You have Sergeant Major John Estrada, who became the 15th Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. While he's not Jamaican, he's from Trinidad. You also have Brigadier General Michael Brigadier General Stephen Michael. He is from Guyana, and the only so far person that we know who became a general out of, Guyana. You also have Grammy recording reggae artist Orville Richard Burrell, aka Shaggy, who served in the Marine Corps, another Jamaican. And one local celebrity to me, he was Command Sergeant Major, United States Army retired, Harry Shakes. Harry passed away about 3 years ago. I met him about 6 years prior to his passing. He served in World War II. He served in the Korean War and also Vietnam. He was a stellar soldier. I used to sit and have conversations with him. He would tell me all the stories from the time that his family migrated from Venezuela to Cuba and then ultimately to Jamaica. Then he left Jamaica and joined the United States military back in the 50s. Anyway, as you see, we have a long list of great people who have served, and we still have a list of people who are currently serving. I enjoy promoting our contribution, and I also enjoy promoting Jamaicans who continue to serve in the military. I am a proud American. Please don't get that wrong. I am a proud American. However, I get the best of both worlds, because not only am I an American by naturalization, I am a Jamaican by birth and heart, and I get to celebrate both. I thank you so much for listening to the very few words that I had to say today, and know that I will continue to promote both the Pana-Caribbean culture. I am grateful that we are able to celebrate. Even though we're only celebrating in June, just know that we're celebrating all 12 months of the year. I thank you again for inviting me today, and thank you for listening to what I had to say. Subject to your questions, that's all I have.
Yes, I will have a question. What branch or what MOS you were in the Army?
I joined the Army in 1982. I was in transportation. I first joined as a stevedore. And if you know what a stevedore is, or, you know, a stevedore is one who works on ships, and they're always doing the hard work, bursting chains and tying down vehicles on deployments, doing the hard work. And after my first 6 years, I changed my MOS to traffic management coordinator, something a little bit more lighter, but I didn't shack up on my responsibility. And with that, deployed, you know, all over the world, served for 22 years, even served as a Korean linguist. The Army sent me to school to be a Korean linguist. So I was one of the very few African Americans who, you know, did that. I'm proud to say that that was fascinating to me. And now I take what I learned in the military and I use it in my community. I'm the first African American to lead the Orange County Veterans Advisory Council under the leadership of Mayor Jerry Demings. We're doing great things in Orange County, Florida. And I invite you all to come and, you know, visit with us. I see some dynamic guest speakers that I'll reach out to have you join us virtually for, you know, our monthly meetings. Thank you for that question.
Dee, it's always a pleasure. And I've had the great opportunity to work together with Dee for probably the past 8 years in AUSA since I was European region president. It's been a pleasure, and it's such a huge asset to have Dee as one of our, you know, immediate past presidents of an AUSA chapter, because that's a huge body of knowledge right there. And I know that she gets called upon by the region and a lot of other groups all the time to help out with issues. So Dee, where are you going tomorrow? You're going to Africa for 3 weeks or what?
I'll be heading to Tanzania tomorrow to visit with my cousin. There's a big Jamaican population in Tanzania. And a couple months ago, the opportunity presented itself. I bought my ticket and I'll be wheels up at 2:30 tomorrow for a 24-hour flight. So wish me luck. And going to, just fellowship, some vacation, but I also wanted to dig into the culture. I'm also doing a TV interview while I'm there, and I'm excited.
From my side, have a wonderful time. Enjoy your flight and enjoy your family.
I thank you.
Hey, D, where specific country are you traveling to? I missed that point because I have some visitor at the office.
I'm actually going into making a stop in Kilimanjaro, but I'm going into Dar es Salaam in Tanzania.
Dar es Salaam, wow.
Yes, going into Tanzania, and I'm going to spend 2 days in Kenya. So this evening I'll go to the VA to finalize my shots. I have 2 more shots to take. It wasn't mandatory, but I decided that I wanted to take my shots. I've taken 7 so far in preparation for this trip. I'm going to take 2 more, and I'll take my COVID test this afternoon, and I'm packed. I'm ready to go.
Better say than sorry. Have a good trip. I know it's a lot.
Okay,
so you're flying to London, and from there to Africa. That's usually the way, or you're flying direct. AFK.
No, I'm actually going from Orlando to Atlanta to Amsterdam, into Kilimanjaro into Dar. The good thing is they're very short delays. Yeah, because it's a long flight, but very, very short delays. Maybe the longest delay I have is in Amsterdam for 2.5 hours. The rest are like an hour.
Okay, sounds good. Enjoy your trip.
Sergeant, I want to wish you a safe trip. Thank you for your service, and we'll see you again in October, probably.
I thank you. I'm still debating. Hopefully, I can return to AUSA and view everything from the side this time. Hoping that we can fellowship again. I have another conference a couple of days prior to that, so I'm hoping I can do both. I thank you. I enjoy every one of you guys. Love you. And you do take care.
Okay, be safe.
Thank you very much, Dee. Have a safe trip, and we'll see you when you get back. I'm going to turn over the microphone to Walter now to introduce our next speaker. Walter?
Hi, everybody. I'm going to introduce Jay Zequeira, Jorge. Jay as a nickname. He's a regional civil military relations coordinator. And let me do a summary of his bio. He's currently the vice president of the Eastern chapter. Has been supporting me for many years. And he works for the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent societies. And another Red Cross is called different, Red Crescent Society. And he's the regional civil military relations coordinator, and he has an office, a cooperation office in Colombia. He was an officer in the U.S. Army from 1986 until 2010, where he retired as a lieutenant colonel. And then he served many positions in many different, in Germany and for many years, really, and then other military posts. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Justice from American University in Washington, D.C., MA in Spanish from Middlebury College in Vermont, and a Master's MBA in Long Island University, New York. So with all that said, Jorge, the audience is all yours, and welcome to the program, and thanks for accepting our invitation.
Well, thanks very much, Walter, and thanks very much for having me. Major General Broadway, distinguished chapter presidents from the Americas. As Walter has said, I'm a kind of mutt of nationalities. My parents are Puerto Rican. I actually grew up in Madrid, Spain. I joined the military early on when I was leaving high school and started college in the National Guard, and then went active duty for for a long term of 24 years. Retired as a lieutenant colonel. And as I like to say, I served my country for 24 years, but I continue now serving humanity, working for the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. As some of you may know, the Red Cross movement, the actual movement, is composed of three major actors. The national societies or Red Crosses we have in every country, in 192 countries across the world, and 35 of those in the Americas. The ICRC, or the International Committee of the Red Cross, that deals with belligerents in times of war, and deals with international law of the land warfare as we have known it in the past. Then we have the Federation, and I worked for the Federation. We mainly concentrate on humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. So when I had the chance as an attaché in working in Venezuela, and then as an Army Section Chief in Guatemala, and then working in the J5 in Southcom to work humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, I found a niche that I really liked in my life. But that's me, and let me start with our Isthmian chapter here and what I like about it. We have over 4,000 retirees living in Panama at this point, and we know this because we've got different not only AUSA but different organizations that we talk to. Some of those retirees are what we call Panamanians from the former zone, canal zone, or some call them Zonians, and some are Panamanians that have turned or naturalized Americans, and have come back. Some like me are people that are of U.S. and like I said, Puerto Rican descent that married Panamanians and are here, and we have. As Walter said at the start of this, we have a challenging mission here in that we do not have Southcom anymore here. We do not have U.S. Army South anymore here. Southcom's in Miami. U.S. Army South is in San Antonio after being for a while in San Juan, Puerto Rico. But we have a mission, and our missions it is not only to support our previous and current military personnel. Current are very little working with the U.S. Embassy and working in missions with the Panamanian government. But previous, like I said, we have retirees that are in great numbers that we can definitely and that we do support here through various means. And we have humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, which, if you know the Americas, it's an everyday mission. In every country in the Americas, you have a disaster or a crisis, or right now we could say the pandemic. And I can talk a little bit, and I will talk a little bit about my work in that. But like I say, our chapter has had to look for other ways in which to serve, and we have found that way, and we do, and we support the embassy and the military personnel there too. Like I said, so what do I do? As a civil military relations coordinator and security coordinator for the Federation in the Americas, we have our regional office here in Panama. I am in charge of the security of every humanitarian that works in any of the many disasters and crises that we live every day, to include the pandemic right now. I've also, I guess because my boss doesn't think that I have enough jobs, for the last 27 months, I've had the hat of running the Federation office of in Colombia. And that I'm turning in right now to the actual new boss or head of office on the 15th of July. So that will be a little breather for me. But we work in migration. Especially in Colombia, we've had a very big impact in the 1,700,000 migrants that have settled in Colombia. What we call the pendular migrants that cross the border every day for humanitarian assistance, for doctors, for medicines, for food. And that we work on a daily basis, as well as what we call the migrant trail. You know, Venezuelan and transnational migrants that come in through Colombia, through Brazil, through Venezuela, and going through Colombia, and go either the North Trail that goes through the very, very thick jungle of the Darien in Panama, going northwards towards the United States, or the Southern Trail that ends up with migrants in Chile. So all the way down to Chile, and these are what we call walkers. They actually walk the trails, and sometimes they get some support there. So, you know, migration is not a disaster. However, it's a reality and a crisis that's here to stay, and we deal with it every day. On top of that, like I said, in every country in South America, every year we find any number of disasters, anywhere from in the islands and in the coasts of Mexico and Central America, hurricanes that come in and out and devastate the areas, such as we had the last hurricanes of Eta and Iota that devastated the Central American region, and even some of the islands of Colombia. We also have, on top of that, the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. So we work multiple disasters and crises on a daily basis, and support countries. And how do we do it? You know, we are a federation that has 7 basic principles, and the first being humanity. You know, we're born to bring assistance without discrimination. Our organization was actually born at the Battle of Solferino in 1859, and it's based on the adoption of a non-discrimination to the wounded, and no matter what side you are from. Impartiality, we make no discrimination of nationality, race, religious beliefs, class, or political opinions in order to support. And that brings us to neutrality, to ensure that we don't take sides in hostilities, and that we merely support. We're independent because we cannot have any political thought or any political belief that drives the organization. If not, we wouldn't be believable in our support to the most needy in every country. And we are based on voluntary service. We are close to the number of billion volunteers across the world. And we pride ourselves in that. We're all volunteers when it comes to one way or another. And without volunteers, our organizations wouldn't work on the day-to-day. We are one Red Cross, even though we call ourselves a movement, a tripartite movement. But we are one Red Cross. When you talk about the Red Cross, people recognize us because of the Red Cross in their countries. But even the Federation working humanitarian assistance and the ICRC or the committee working belligerents, we talk to each other, we coordinate with each other, and we ensure we support countries. And we're universal. You can find us everywhere. Like I said, 192 countries across the world and 35 in the Americas. What programs, what types of other programs we have in any type of humanitarian assistance and disaster relief? We can come with a short or small monetary contribution of what we call a DREF, or Disaster Relief Emergency Fund. That is a fund that is kept in Geneva in our headquarters. And it's designed to help in initial disaster response operations, to appeals. And I'm sure everybody has heard about international appeals that the Red Cross does. The UN does appeals also in order to raise money for any humanitarian assistance and disaster relief operation. Of course, nothing works without having the funding to support it. Food, water, health, as well as even shelter doesn't come with without having nations contribute, such as the EU or the United States through what used to be off the USAID, but now called the BHA, Bureau of Humanitarian Affairs, so that we work very closely with. JICA from Japan, for example, and many other countries through their international humanitarian assistance and disaster relief programs. So like I said, we bring a wealth of support to our continent, to the world, and I am proud to say that being having been an officer in the United States Army for 24 years, and having learned what it is to serve and what it is to support and to be there for our soldiers and as well as for our personnel and for our country, has helped me all the better to serve now our hemisphere and humanity. And I say that with a lot of distinction, because it really has helped me do a lot, both with AUSA, I think, and with other programs that we had in the region. One of the, and I'll finish with this, one of the latest programs that we have here in Panama that was started with a consultorship that I did for the Panamanian government, and that we pride ourselves with, is a humanitarian hub. It's a hub that brings logistics, that brings learning on disaster relief and humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, as well as support to every nation in a country where you can be. If you look at Panama, you can be and support any other nations within a 5 to 7 hour period. Panama being the right location, the right area to have the correct logistics, trimodal logistics, sea, air, land, sea, and air, has made it the right place to support this. So I'll stop talking about myself and what I do, and very proud to be a live member of AUSA. Very proud to be a member of the Caribbean and Latin American community, as well as a soldier that you never cease on being. So thank you very much, ma'am, for your words that were really, really well taken. Chapter presidents Eric, Walter, and Agustin. So that thank you for the time and the availability to be able to tell you what we do and what we continue to do here in Panama. If there are any questions at this time. Well, it seems like there's no questions, so I'll pass. Oh, you have one question.
I just wanted to I had a comment. It was such a pleasure when we had the third region meeting in Panama in 2019. It was just wonderful. And you guys did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm voting for a repeat.
Repeat. Well, yeah, like I mentioned in my the third region meeting when I was talking about the do's and don'ts of the fundraising. For us, it's great. We have done it like 3 times: 1995, 2003, 2019. And I'm sure we can do it again whenever we can do it an in-person meeting. And we like to be like tour organizers, event planners. We want to have people have a good time. So yeah, Jorge and I are ready. Whenever you guys are ready, maybe after South Carolina or something. Maybe sometime in 2023 or whatever. So yeah, definitely. We will welcome all of you.
So thank you very much, Cristiano, Eric, General Broadway, D, Edwin, and all, and Agustin, and all. Thank you, and please come and visit us. We definitely will show you. We'll show you the humanitarian hub. We'll show you what we do. We'll show you what we support, and you'll see, and you can see it any day. You have an open invitation. Thank you.
Hey, sir.
Thanks, Jay, for your words.
Sir, if I may, I served in Panama for 6 years.
No kidding.
From 1991 through 1997.
Okay.
And Walter, you talked about the Army drawdown there.
Yeah.
So I was the one that wrote the personnel annex to withdraw the forces out of Panama.
Really? Wow. Yeah. Before, first it was the Southcom and then U.S. Army South. Yeah.
Right.
So we need to blame you for the drawdown.
Roger that, and then since I did not do a good job, when they decided the Department of Defense decided to move U.S. Army South from
they pick your place
from Fort Buchanan to San Antonio, they also brought me to do that handoff. So I guess the second time I should have done better.
Okay, yeah. So you're a repeater. So it means that you do a good job. They want you as an advisor. Yeah, nice.
Thank you very much for your service, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much also. Wasn't aware that you had been here.
Yes.
So who was the Major General that time?
I worked with, you mentioned General Cisneros.
Yeah, at first,
General Broadwater. No.
It was Hartsock, Cisneros, then we had Kinzer, we had Tinker, we had a bunch of, they keep switching them off. The ones that I remember the most are the Southcom, which is George Shelton.
Right. And then General Valenzuela was the deputy commander for support, and then he became the Sarso CG,
Okay.
and that's when I came to Puerto Rico when he was there.
Oh, great. Okay.
And he introduced me just that way. He said he didn't do a good job in Panama. We're going to try it again. Yeah.
Thanks, Cristino, for your
Right,
service.
thank you.
Hey, Chief, I'm going to hand you the microphone to introduce our last panelist of the day.
Okay. Well, thank you, Eric, and thank you all for your service. It is now my distinct honor to introduce Edwin Ramos-Jourdan. Him and I are going back together for the big wars here on the island, specifically during the preparations for Memorial Day events. So that you know, here on the island, all the veteran services organizations, we are the one that do the planning and execution of all the events. And Mr. Jordan and I, we have worked together in many of these. He is the son of a member of the 65th Infantry Regiment, better known as the Borinqueniers, which was an elite unit of Puerto Rican only soldiers that fought valiantly during the Second World War and Korea. So both of his fathers, his parents have passed away. But right now, Edwin, he's the coordinator for the Puerto Rico National Guard outreach, survivors outreach, and he does a tremendous job there with the working with these situations that are very difficult for the soldiers when one of them passes away, specifically in active duty. So I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Edwin Ramos-Jourdan. Adelante.
Good morning to all. Short brief before to start. I've been in Panama so many years ago when I was the president of the American Red Cross Puerto Rico chapter. It was a nice experience. My father was in Panama during the Korean War, and then he had to move from Panama to Korea. Well, first to Germany, and from Germany to Korea. He's a wounded soldier. He received his Purple Heart during the Korean conflict. Back to here, again, my name is Edwin Ramos-Jourdan. I am the Survivor Outreach Services Coordinator for the United States Army, particularly for the Puerto Rico National Guard, Army Reserve, and active duty. I also serve to U.S. Virgin Islands as well. My main functions are to assist the family of the deceased service member. This Army program was established back to 2006 after the terrorist attack of the United States territory and the Iraq incursion. This Army program is active and operational in the 50 CONUS states and territories. After the notification of the death of the service member, the SOS became part of the process. After this, we are with the family during the funeral and burial process for the National Cemetery of the United States Army Veterans Administration and private and public cemeteries in Puerto Rico. The U.S. Army is dedicated to fulfilling the family covenant by providing support to surviving families for as long as they desire. As coordinator of this program, we strive to maintain the military tradition to the family of the military service member. For the survivors, specifically spouse, children, and parents, we strive to provide support and services that they are entitled to receive. Such is the detail that we seek to satisfy all the needs of the survivors, providing events and activities for their enjoyment, and also providing moral support and financial assistance. These activities, among others, include Coast Guard events, and I'm going to explain that briefly. First of all, the SOS program takes charge of the survivor of all deceased members, Exactly, we got more than 300 and 700 survivor families. This includes the KIA that dies in the theater, illness, accidental, homicide, and last, self-inflicted. These special events and activities seek to provide that type of contact with the U.S. Army. These events promote courage, honor, integrity, and service to the nation. These events include the participation of survivors and their families. Some of these events are the Gold Star Dinner twice a year for spouse, mother, and relatives to the deceased soldier, the raising of the Gold Star flag in April, Memorial Day, as mentioned by Chief Lozada, the last month of May, the U.S. flag retirement ceremony in June, and the Rest Across America in December. Among other events, like in this moment, Hurricane Irma Maria back in 2017, earthquakes, and pandemic right now of COVID-19. In addition to this, the Puerto Rico SOS program is open to assist and cooperate with U.S. Armed Forces deceased service members. For example, as happened last May the 2nd, 2018, when we lost a C-130H that crashed in Savannah, Georgia. For the Puerto Rico Air National Guard, we lost 9 airmen. The SOS program maintains very close relations with federal and Agustin Montanez, the veterans advocate in Puerto Rico, and other private organizations in order to have available services for our survivors. Our service is located at the U.S. Army Garrison at Fort Buchanan, Guaynabo. Once again, thanks for the opportunity to be with all of you and try to share all the information that I provide to my survivors. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was wonderful. Have you got any experience working with the Guard, with the ESGR in Puerto Rico?
Well, I got involved in all the programs that belongs to the soldiers and the family, especially with the survivor of the deceased service member. But I intervened directly with the ESGR, the organization of Chief Lozada, family program, Yellow Ribbon, every program that the Army has available for the family and the service member, I am part of the group. Doesn't matter. I am available 24/7.
Thank you, sir. I think that that was the end of our questions, and you know, it's a pleasure. Thank you for supporting us on this, and we will go on to plan the next iteration for next year. And next year, the Puerto Rico chapter will be the host of the Pana-Caribbean Military Heritage Summit. I think that now, as we go about our day, everybody should celebrate their Caribbean heritage, the Pana-Caribbean heritage, and all the troops that served, and you know, get a mojito or.
So I'm really glad and very proud of you for putting it together and make us all being part of it. So thank you very much on behalf of all of us.
Great job, Eric. Great job.
Eric. And it's amazing how the world has become smaller. We have people spread out all over, and it seems that we're in the same room. So yeah, definitely. Thanks everybody, and we'll be in touch then. Looking forward to the recording.
All right, see you later. Thank you very much.
Bye now.